My name is Karl Carafel, and I am alongside, well, not the curator of topics this week. A little bit of issue going on with Mighty Joe. Everything is good. Everything is fine. Everything is safe with Mighty Joe, but I do have two of my most favorite people from over at Love Wrestling joining me today so that we can go through and still bring you Turnbuckle Talk. Alongside me today, we are talking with Chris Parrish as well as our good friend, Ed. And this is absolutely exciting. I know, Ed, that this is the first time that we have had an opportunity to actually be together on a stream doing anything with Love Wrestling, and I am so looking forward to this. This week is a little bit different than what everybody may be used to. Usually we have the curator of topics, Mighty Joe, that bring us all these different topics. This week, we have something very special that has been presented to us from our friend Chris, and we've decided to go with this and run with this week. And this one is very simple and easy, whether it was as a fan, as a worker, as someone who reports on professional wrestling. It doesn't matter what capacity of the professional wrestling world that you have been in. There is somewhere, somehow, some way, in some moments that gripped you, hooked you, and got you to being a professional wrestling fan. And that's what we're here to talk about today because, well, we all share in our love of professional wrestling. Chris, take this away for me here for a moment. Let people know who you are, what you do, and where you actually are working.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I've always appreciated your guys' work and your show. And Joe, I really hope to see you back on. All the hope that everything is better on your end. But yeah, no, I kind of just, when I thought of this, it's so fitting, right? Like, it's just such a fitting thing of this, because I remember being a young kid, loving pro wrestling, being made fun of. I went to school dressed up as Shawn Michaels in grade 6. My best friend at the time said I looked like a girl. I went home crying because I just felt bad, right? And then, boom, Chris Jericho in grade 9, and I felt no shame because I broke all the walls down. But yeah, no, I'm always just a wrestling fan. Like, I'm a pro wrestler since 2004. I've worked for many companies. I've been very fortunate and humbled to have had some of the things I have. Man, like even this year, having Jim Johnson following me on Twitter, that's just one of the coolest moments and perks, right? But yeah, no, I mean, you can follow me, a Real Canadian Wrestling, which is located in Edmonton, Alberta, in Lethbridge, Alberta, Pure Power Wrestling. Those are the two mainstays. You can follow me. I will be changing the game with Love Wrestling, partnering up with Full Force on October 15th at the Edmonton Rec Center on the south side. So make sure you check that out, which I believe you can stay tuned to Love Wrestling, where you can watch the show live, I believe. So that is where you can find me in the ring. And again, thank you, man. I'm just grateful to be here.
Awesome. I'm happy that you decided to come on, even though everything did not work out as we planned. I'm happy you still decided to come on and stay on with the show today. Ed, take us through a little bit of who you are and what you are doing over at Love Wrestling.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just a longtime wrestling fan. Grew up in the Boston area. Just loving wrestling like everybody else did. Same thing with Parrish. I grew up a Shawn Michaels fan. I grew up in the New Generation era. Like any kid that can watch the New Generation era and say, I fell in love at the end of the Golden Hogan era, beginning of the New Generation era. Like, I don't sit here and watch wrestling and go, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. Because I grew up watching Doink the Clown wrestle a guy named Adam Bomb. And I grew up watching Duke the Dumpster Drosy and Triple H thinking that he was a blue blood, French Canadian dude. Yes, with the whole thing. Like, that's when I fell in love with wrestling. So people sitting here going, oh my God, Raw's unwatchable. No, it's not. You just got to find the good and the bad. And there's a lot of good going on right now. And things are changing because people are making it change. WWE was at some of its best creatively when they had competition. They've got competition. Oh, yeah. It isn't on the same night. It isn't. You can't. It's not apples and oranges yet, but someday it will be. Like people, I'll get back to that because I love AEW, but I'm not the diehard AEW guy. I'm the one. Let's put it this way. We'll do a little inside baseball. I'm the one person in the chat who doesn't profess their love right now for AEW. I've stayed very quiet in the Slack chat for about a week and a half because of the fact that they've killed it with all kinds of great things. That being said, I'm just not as all in as everybody else is with AEW. But I love them, and they're doing fantastic work, and all the best luck to them. I hope they succeed because wrestling's at its best when there's great wrestling to be had. Whether it's here and whether it's in the love of my life in WWE, whether it's in Impact Wrestling, whether it's my local indie show, whether it's how dare I not? But otherwise, on Love Wrestling, I work with Parrish on Saturday afternoons most of the time, and we host a React show for right now. But the wrestling world's changing, and so everything else might be changing. On top of change, tomorrow we debut with the re-debut of NXT, as William Regal called it 2.0, which got me real scared because that was an official William Regal promo on Twitter earlier. Yes, my co-host for the new program NXT, where we're going to be spilling the tea about everything NXT after Power Out. So that's the new rebrand for us. Now that the war is pretty much over, we figured that the War Report name needed to be a little bit changed. So we've got the All Elite Report on the weekends with Matt and JPJ, and they're killing it, talking all things Elite. And then me, Cody, and Astrid will be talking all things NXT after Power.
Awesome. And I absolutely love that name, NXT, TEA. I absolutely love that. A friend of mine, I don't know if any of you know her, but Noelle Harlow Lagrasso. She has been doing a show as well, Spilling the Tea, TEA, which is absolutely fantastic. Noelle is the wife of former worker Vito Lagrasso, Big Vito. Two absolutely amazing people. I absolutely love them, and they have been a constant in my life, and I absolutely am happy for them. So I'm happy to see that someone else is using that TEA and not just Noelle, because it works so well. The chat is blowing up here, and I'm absolutely loving this. And for those of you that have not joined us here before, this is something that we love to do. We love to be putting things out there. Cool running, shameless plugs. Yes, Pluggo, that is right. So this one here, the Real Tight Spot. Thank you. Yes, 3 amazing guys here today. Badass trio on a Monday. Someone celebrating a Saints blowout win. Yeah. There we go. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And then Jay Quick 30, thank you for stopping in, coming by. Speaking of Impact, Gail Kim will be making an announcement about this weekend's taping, and she will be joined by a returning Knockout. That's pretty cool. That's something that we like to hear. We love to hear that. And again, coming back full circle to our topics here, right? So the topic, what got us into professional wrestling. Little things like that definitely get you and hook you even more into the world of professional wrestling. When you've got a returning somebody, whether it's a superstar, whether it's a knockout, whether it was back in the day a diva, whether it was didn't matter. If somebody was returning but was kept secret, you were hyped, you were anticipating who it was going to be, when it was going to happen, stuff like that. See, professional wrestling for me started pretty much at the age of 3. My Oma, which is grandmother, was a professional wrestling fan. From what I am told, she lived in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, as I lived in Northern Ontario, Canada. My parents would tell me that she would literally sit there and yell at the television when her favorite wrestler was getting beaten down. And you got to remember, this is back like the 80s, 70s, and 80s. So kayfabe was still alive back then. So she thought that these people were getting beaten down because nobody knew the difference back then. And did I know the difference? I did not know the difference at all back then. Growing up, just like everyone else, myself, made fun of growing up, made fun of in school because I was that fan of professional wrestling. Did I like baseball? No. Football? No. Wait, I'm Canadian. Did I like hockey? No. I was a fan of professional wrestling. That was it. And I grew up with a little bit of the older guys. You know, I grew up with like the Hulk Hogans and the Randy Savages. And, you know, like I grew up with that generation of professional wrestling, the rock and wrestling era. That's what I grew up with. And it's just continued on since. My favorite of all time, that's right, the man who does the sweet chin music, Mr. Shawn Michaels. Maybe. Ric Flair is pretty close up there as well. The two of them definitely have been my all-time favorite growing up. But the love of it was just there because it was different. And I didn't care that I was being made fun of because I had a passion that I was able to talk about, to the point where I even talked about steel cage matches in an oral presentation at my school that got an A+. So I think I did something right with my love of professional wrestling while other people were talking about baseball or hockey or football or anything else different like that. Yeah, I was talking professional wrestling and getting A+ in my classes. Hey there, how's it going? Thank you so much for coming by. Absolutely amazing. Tell your friends. If you're liking what you're hearing, tell your friends. And real tight spot. Let's see. PCO possible to AEW late this year. Does that happen?
Maybe.
I don't think so.
I was just saying, I mean, PCO is as great as he is and as great a story as it is, especially me remembering him as John Pierre Lafitte, the pirate. Yep. And the great story with him stealing Bret Hart's jacket. Because, you know, as a Shawn Michaels fan growing up, anything bad that happened to Bret Hart made me smile.
Right.
So, I know that that's a dangerous thing in a room of Canadians, but
I'm from Edmonton. We always learn to hate Calgary no matter what. Plus, I'm an Owen guy anyway, and a Shawn Michaels guy all the way through too. So,
but like PCO is great.
Bret
but
screwed Bret.
Yeah,
I think AEW's done a really good job of keeping their legends to specific legends that are specific to the people in their company.
Yeah,
Taz is a great legend because, like Bully Ray always says on Busted Open, he sees a lot of ECW and AEW. He sees that same fire and passion for the guys that are in the company and girls. I'm sorry. I say guys as a collective whole because in AEW, I feel like they are a collective whole.
Yes, you're right. You're right. So growing up, we're going to go through now, and I want to find out a moment in your professional wrestling watching life that not maybe solidified your love of professional wrestling, but maybe changed your game a little bit when it came to professional wrestling. I'm going to start out with you here, Chris. What is a moment in professional wrestling that really gripped you and held you as a professional wrestling fan?
So I actually have 3, and they're all meaningful in different ways. What made me actually know that I wanted to wrestle when I grew up was when I saw the 1995 Royal Rumble live. And I got to see my favorite wrestler, Shawn Michaels, go in #1 and win the whole thing, which I still think is one of the best Rumbles that I've ever seen. However, it's also one of the shortest of all times too, because they really went through that quickly. But I mean, just take it back. I mean, it was just it was really when Rumbles, in my opinion, became the coolest thing in the world. Well, and that's just for me. I know a lot of people will go back to the Ric Flair one, and rightfully so. That was a very cool one. But I mean, come on, this led to the boyhood dream coming true a year later. So I mean, please. And then it was another one of when I actually saw Rey Mysterio won the World Heavyweight title in Chicago, WrestleMania 22. Being someone who's 5'7", 180 pounds, seeing somebody my size actually win, it was very influential. Like, this was 2002, I believe, and I had just started training. I wasn't working yet. I was just in the training phase. But seeing that somebody my size could actually go to the pinnacle of this business and win one of the most important, prestigious titles in pro wrestling, I mean, how do you not? And like, it's just one of the coolest things. And then again, I'm going with Shawn Michaels, but him coming back and having the best match I humanly possibly saw that night in one of the most amazing pay-per-views, the SummerSlam, I think it was 2004. The unsanctioned match against Triple H, and just see him back and then still do it was just so influential of my life. But again, I know I said before I had 3, I lied. I'm sorry. The 4th one is one I will never, ever forget. I mentioned I went to school for Halloween dressed as Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho. The WrestleMania 19 match was just absolutely amazing to me because it was for the first time I saw the two guys, in my opinion, who I wanted to be when I grew up. I mean, think about it. Chris Parrish, where does that come from? But yeah, like, just seeing that match, never thought in a million years I would see that, just given all the history with Shawn Michaels and his back and not having the internet because we're old people. But yeah, I mean, on. Like, those are just amazing. When you get older, you get the bumps and the bruises. Seeing Shawn Michaels come back from something gives you hope you can still do that. Just being a small guy, Rey Mysterio is just so influential. One of the best luchadors, actually the best luchador of all time. Yeah, like, those are 4, like, right off the top of my head. Like, without those, I am not a pro wrestler.
Awesome. No, that's absolutely fantastic. And I'm glad that you brought all of those out, because definitely people need to know, people need to hear about them. Ed, I'm going to throw this down to you right now. Tell me about a moment that just made your passion come through and validated your thought of loving professional wrestling.
So the first 2 moments that I can remember, like, legit, again, childhood, but crying during wrestling, because when I think of passion for wrestling, there are those moments that just make you cry. In wrestling, if great wrestling does that to all of us, in our 30s, in our teens, when we're kids, there are moments that make you cry. The boyhood dream, as Parrish mentioned. I mean, I'm as old as WrestleMania. The first year WrestleMania was around was the year I was born. So every year I know, how old I was when WrestleMania. 12-year-old kid watching my favorite wrestler win the world title in one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. Because as a kid, the thought of going 1 hour, not having seen Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair do it, not seeing the greats in WCW and before WCW and Jim Crockett Promotions having done it. It was unheard of to think that 2 guys could wrestle for an entire hour.
Right.
Watching those guys just perform magic there, where nobody won in an entire hour, and it took, the ending to do it. It brought out the emotion. At the same time, being a 14-year-old kid and finally getting to go for the first time WrestleMania being in my hometown, and going to Boston as a kid, and for my birthday gift, to watch WrestleMania and to watch my favorite do it for the last time. What I thought was the last time. And crying my way out of that arena, in an arena full of people celebrating Stone Cold and the rise of the Austin era. And me sitting there bawling in tears because Mike Tyson turned his back on Shawn Michaels and he lost. Right. And then learning that was pretty much the end of Shawn Michaels in WWE, because we all thought that was the end.
Yeah.
Because we didn't think 2002 was ever going to come again.
Not
so those 2
all.
moments, those two moments just it solidified it. I mean, but Boston's had such a rich history. I mean, being there the first time The Rock won the IC title, I was at that live event. Watching Shawn Michaels hand over the WWE title when he lost his smile, I was in Lowell for that one.
We don't have to talk about that moment with Shawn Michaels fans.
It's one of those moments that everybody paints as such a painful thing, and and he's like, oh, it was him not wanting to do it, but the feel in the venue when he said that I'm walking away and I've lost my smile, and feeling the air just come out of a venue because of it. It's a special feeling.
Right. And that's emotion, just as you talked about. That's human emotion that was happening inside of that arena. It definitely is. One of the biggest things for me that really solidified things was a moment with Hulk Hogan and Earthquake, where we saw Earthquake squash Hulk Hogan, and we saw Hulk Hogan being carted away while bloody on his chest and gripping his cross and holding on to that and giving a thumbs up and saying, I'll be back and it's okay, don't worry. And you saw it panning out to the crowd, and you saw that emotion out there of the people going, what did we just see? What just happened? And how is Hulk Hogan? What's going to happen to Hulk Hogan now? And then to see him return and be okay, for me was like, oh my God, superhero right there. This man was just crushed by this guy who looks like he's 1,000 pounds. And now he's back again and he's good and things are okay. And that for me was like superhero like. So, I mean, it wasn't always all about Superman, who is my favorite superhero. It wasn't about any of the comic books. It wasn't about any of that. It was about this person I know is real and yet went through and endured this, but still came back. Again, kayfabe was alive, very much so back then, so I had no clue. But to me, he was a superhero now, right? And that was really what solidified it for me. Professional wrestling in the 80s, the mid to late 80s, and the early 90s, they were superheroes to me. And I think that's why I was really drawn to them, is because it was a live action superhero television show that I could watch on a weekly basis with people that I knew were not just drawn cartoons or acting at that time. I knew that it was real and it felt real. So, Chris, you were looking like you had something there. What do you got?
Because we're talking about the human aspect. And I mentioned the 1995 Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I got to watch that, and I think we both can understand kind of what I mean. Pay-per-view was not accessible to every household back in the day. You only latched on to one of the closest buddies that you knew that had pay-per-view because you wanted to watch wrestling, right? Like that's a true thing back when we were kids. So I didn't know a lot of my friends had it, but my brother played on a hockey team where their goalie had pay-per-view, and the goalie was a wrestling fan, and I was only invited because I was a wrestling fan. And so really, like, my brother, who was a big Ultimate Warrior fan back when he was a kid, and he had the Hulk Hogan blue dumbbells and all the headband, everything, right? Like all that too. He's also 7 years older than me. And the reason why this is important, one of the moments that will always stand the test of time, I also mentioned I was an Owen Hart fan. That match of WrestleMania 10 between Bret Hart and Owen Hart, to me, will just live from an emotional standpoint, because as a younger brother, you're always trying to compete with your bigger brother. You always want to do better than him because he was the firstborn. You want to be better. And as, the youngest, you're weird, right? You're the goalie on the team. You're different. You're the outcast. You're that red-headed stepchild, we'll say. But with that being said, it's like you do things a little differently. But when I saw Owen Hart step out of the shadow and beat Bret Hart in one of my favorite matches ever, just made me so much more belief that as the baby, the younger brother of a family, like, I am capable of doing things. It gave me a lot of hope, even though he was the bad guy and I wasn't. And that standpoint of him in the entrance aisle always saying it's all about you at WrestleMania 10 is to me is still the greatest story that WWF at the time never completely told and finished telling. And God bless Owen, because he is by far a huge inspiration to me.
I was gonna say, if we're talking about Bret and Owen, as much as I love the match at WrestleMania 10, that SummerSlam steel cage match is probably one of the best steel cage matches I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then that story going to Survivor Series and Owen pleading with his mother to throw the towel in because he knows Stu's not going to do it.
Nope.
He knows Stu's not going to do it. Stu's like, no, Bret told us not to. We're not doing anything. And pleading with his mother to throw the
Cried
towel
on cue.
I know.
On
Wasn't it
cue.
great?
Oh,
I mean,
terrific.
That story may not have gotten the outcome it needed to have, but there was a great story that was still told.
It's still real to me, damn it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So now, Ed, growing up as a fan of professional wrestling, who did you really latch on to when it comes to any of the workers, when it comes to your favorites within the world of professional wrestling back then? Was it all strictly WWF back then, or were you able to catch a little bit of the outside stuff and have a favorite from there?
I never knew that there was anything other than WWF.
Okay.
In New England, I didn't have cable for a long time. Like I had some cable, but I didn't have access to everything. It wasn't until the war started happening that I really got to realize that WCW was a thing.
Okay.
I was a naive fan who didn't get what the Nacho Man and the Billionaire Ted sketches for a little bit. I didn't necessarily know what those were, and then they started before the war started. But I did love, I grew to really love some guys in WCW. And then when I found out about WCW, going back and learning about some of the greats, and so it's it's Ric Flair, it's Harley Race, but it's also guys like DDP and Sting, Lex Luger. The WCW run for Lex Luger, people remember the WWF run that was kind of failed, but they forget about the run in the first time in WCW where he was a star and he was great, and there was a reason why Vince saw him as the next Hogan. Seeing Surfer Sting back in the old days with all that great stuff. I mean, Surfer Sting was such an amazing. Like the Crow is great, and I love the Crow, and it works for Darby Allin. But could you imagine seeing Surfer Sting now, and just like especially against guys like 2.0? Bring back Surfer Sting for something like 2.0 because that'd be funny. Because in my mind, Sting had a moment in time, that character where he was on screen for a year and a half and didn't say a word.
Yes.
And didn't wrestle a match. Like making all of that money and not wrestling a match and just showing up to do the run-in every couple weeks. That was an amazing story that they managed to tell that would never get a chance nowadays because the fan base is too instantaneous to do it, and telling a long-term story like that would never happen. But yeah, it's guys. Right. It's guys like Shawn Michaels. It's guys like Doink the Clown was a huge fan because I was a kid in WWF and Doink the Clown was hysterical.
Right.
So it's guys like that, but it's also, Ted DiBiase and Tatanka and just so many other guys that, get the Legends run every now and then when WWE remembers that they still, work the business and need the name recognition. Right. But it's those guys in that early 90s period, that new generation period. That was my heyday.
Awesome. So I'm going to put this up here on screen. I don't know, Chris, do you have that available anywhere close to you right now?
Oh, you mean this?
Right.
So I don't know if you guys noticed because when we're playing all the themes, yeah. So when you guys were playing the rock music, which I got to say, so refreshing to hear rock music in the Love Wrestling streams because wow, I can't really get into it's not my jam, the other music. So sure, I don't know. I was doing the Seth Rollins, I was swinging the title around my head, doing that whole thing as it was going on, just because I was just trying to make you guys laugh.
That we don't do very often on this stream, but hold that up for the camera there for a moment, and we will give everybody a good look here at the Love Wrestling Championship. There we go. So absolutely amazing to have a champion on the show. Like, how cool is that? Right? I'm stumbling over my words.
The Love
That
Wrestling Elite
Canada
Championship.
dude, that Canada dude. Thank you so much. So I want to take things into a little bit of a different area right now. We've talked about our loves of who and kind of the moments that brought us to becoming a professional wrestling fan. But everybody always seems to have that one person that they absolutely loved that no one else seemed to like. And I want that you guys kind of take a moment to think about this and think about somebody that is a little bit obscure that you absolutely enjoyed and loved watching on a weekly basis or were a fan of that nobody else was a fan of. We'll start this out with you, Chris.
Well, it always seemed like the people I loved were appreciated after the fact. Like, I was a huge Jericho fan, and he wasn't initially loved until after the fact. We were just talking with Ed, like guys that you loved. Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, Crow Sting, because I saw the movie and I'm like, oh, finally get WCW, and this guy looks just like him. Awesome. Became that. And then all of a sudden, the internet goes, like, we get the internet, and then you go to Ring of Honor. That's where I became a CM Punk guy. Then I become like an Adam Cole fan, right? And it's just weird to see 4 of those guys currently in AEW right now. The generational difference is insane. But the one guy I believe that was so good, whether it's performing, entertaining, that never got a real shot of being the guy, we talked about him already. It's the NXT commissioner, William Regal.
Yes. No, I definitely would have to agree with that. Ed, do you have any type of, well, let's call it a guilty pleasure when it comes to performers within the world of professional wrestling that not everybody was a fan of?
I mean, like growing up, it would be Tatanka. Like, you know, that as a kid, that was so cool. Like, you know, he had that Hulk Hogan type moment where, you know, he'd get beaten up and he'd do the warpath, and it was cool and interesting like that. But I moved to Wisconsin for a while, and I was able to help out with a promotion called BCW, Brew City Wrestling.
Yep.
And I met a guy, Matt Winchester, who turns out to be the Beer City Bruiser. And I used to get to see that guy, you know, every couple weeks. I would see that guy do stuff, and I wrapped a ring for a barbed wire match that he had one time. That dude is super, super talented. Ring of Honor is a great home for him, but I really hope someday he gets a little bit more for himself, because while he's a big guy, he's got a lot to offer, and he's super entertaining, and he's different, and he doesn't look the part of the professional wrestler that would make it, you know, like Adam Cole, you know, Britt Baker says he has beautiful teeth and they're perfect and whatnot. She had that tweet about that. Matt Winchester doesn't have a ton of teeth, but he uses that as a part of his gimmick where he gnaws on guys' arms. Like, a dude like that is just absolutely phenomenal. And I wish the best for him, because he's such a cool dude too.
He definitely is. One of my guilty pleasures in the world of professional wrestling growing up was Bastion Booger. I absolutely loved and adored the character of Bastion Booger. Not when he played the Friar or whatever. Like, no, it just wasn't the same. But as Bastion Booger, where he had what looked like duct tape going across his body and coming out and eating turkey or chicken or whatever it was, the entire whole thing, that fed into my little fat kid guilty pleasures, and I absolutely loved it. And thankfully, I was able to actually finally be able to meet Mike Shaw is who played the character of Bastion Booger before he passed away. I was actually lucky enough to work on a show that had him there as well, and got to sit and talk with him for a few minutes, which was absolutely fantastic. So guilty pleasure for me that not everyone else was a big fan of was Bastion Booger or Mike Shaw. No pun intended with this. Mike Shaw was a super big man in Calgary. I didn't know that. I didn't know that he was big in Calgary. Is this the character that he played there? Makan Singh? I'm not sure if it is or not, but yeah, big character in Calgary. So that's absolutely fantastic. I absolutely loved Mike Shaw, and being able just to sit and talk with him for that little bit of time was absolutely fantastic. And just to be able to tell him, hey, you were one of the reasons why I continued to watch professional wrestling, and to see him just kind of get that little bit of a smile on his face, trying to keep his kind of composure and, like not necessarily geek out, I guess, but for him just to kind of have that demeanor of thank you and just have that little smile on his face, but you could see in the eyes that he lit up to know that somebody appreciated what he did there.
I'll show you that little picture that I
was going to say.
Him.
Yeah, it was him in,
okay.
In global wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
I mean, not to cut you off, Karl. But,
no, go ahead.
Another man, like we're talking like those big, kind of like bigger bodies in wrestling. Another one that I just absolutely loved, and maybe it was a tandem between him and his main squeeze, that I don't think ever got, the right push was Bam Bigelow. Him and Luna Vachon were just.
I was thinking about
absolutely. Yeah, that I thought I dropped a good enough hint. But. Oh my Lord, like whether it was the stuff he did in ECW was just absolutely amazing. Like we all remember the spot where they go through the stage in ECW. But then also like, man, that guy and Lawrence Taylor, a football player, tore the house down in the main event of WrestleMania, which is still to me right there with Bad Bunny's debut match at WrestleMania. That was like one of the best debut matches for a celebrity ever in pro wrestling. However, and it pains me to say because Diesel and Michaels killed it too that night. But it was just one of those things. Bam Bigelow was one of the best big men workers at the time there, along with Yokozuna, another one that I don't think gets enough love and appreciation for how good he was. But, I mean, he got the title, whereas Bam Bigelow never got that. And it's like, we always remember the guys that we loved that never got the championship, right? So, and he never even got the Intercontinental. And that was an absolutely just shame. Just shame on you, Vince.
Yeah.
He deserved that one.
But I mean, when you think about the guys who were, like, it's like, as much as I love Bam Bam, you think about the guys that were in that picture during that time, and you're talking about the Bretts and the Shawns and the Razors and this who's who of wrestling lineage. When you're talking about Bam Bam's era in WWF, it's so tough to look back and go, it was a missed opportunity because they hit so many home runs with so many other guys. I mean, Scott Hall versus Bret Hart, Razor versus Bret at the 92, I think, isn't it the 92 Rumble or is it 95? I forget what year, maybe 92, 93. But Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon for the title.
No, at 95, I believe that was, wasn't it Bret and Tate? No, that was 96. Yeah, maybe it was 95. 95. I think it was 95 because 96 was Bret and Taker. And that's when Taker had the mask and, and Shawn Michaels ran in. Everyone ran in that match. But yeah, no, I think you're right. 95, yeah. 94 or 95, one of the two.
Yeah, it's just there's so much good in that era that, like, if you go and look for it, you can find it. And it's just so fantastic.
It definitely is. Man, this has been absolutely fantastic just to talk and reminisce and look back on things here. I think what we're going to do right now, though, is I need to take another drink of my non-sponsored Dr. Pepper. So if you've got something that you need to take a drink of as well, now will be your time to do that, as we are going to make our way into a quick commercial break, and we will be right back with you all in just a few moments.
Wrestling, a love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand, the wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connects emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
The dictionary defines hero as a person who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. Being a hero in life is far more than words printed on a page. It takes an unwavering code, a compass that points true north, always. And in times like these, it takes sacrifice. Hero shouldn't be a word defined by a dictionary. It's a word that should be defined by the best of us. Hero has a new definition.
Hi, my name's Barry Ratcliffe. You might recognize me from such films as The Longest Ride or Ted 2. Now, as a successful actor, I have 2 planes, a supermodel wife, countless exotic cars, and a ton of cash. You might think it couldn't get any better than this, but you'd be wrong. For only $4.99, you could get OVWWrestlingNetwork.com. That's OVWWrestlingNetwork.com for only $4.99. Now, will your life be as good as this? No. Will it be better? Yes, and I guarantee that. That's not valid anywhere. OVWWrestlingNetwork.com is only $4.99. Tomorrow's yesterday is today. Prices so low, they're insane. What was angrier, but well, so do I. At OVWWrestlingNetwork.com, it's only $4.99 a month. In between excitement, me too. OVWWrestlingNetwork.com is only $4.99 a month. You get that incredible value. She cost me $17 million, and I loved it. Want a real value? OVWWrestlingNetwork.com. It's only $4.99. That's a price so low. Well, it's insane.
Welcome back, everybody, to Turnbuckle Talk. And thank you for sticking around during those commercial breaks. This is normally the point in the show where Mighty Joe and I would talk about our sponsors, but I got to cover that this week, so I'm just going to tell you super quick. We have a couple of sponsors. If you need workout supplements or even some workout gear, go and check out our friends at Phoenix, FNXFit.com. Go over there, and they have amazing stuff over there. The best product that I have found from over there has been their Super Greens. I absolutely love their Super Greens. 3 different flavors that you can choose from, but they have pre-workout, post-workout, recovery, sleep aids. Everything that you can think of is probably there. So go and check out fnxfit.com. While you are there, you can use the promo code, and it is in the ticker down below there for you, TB Talk Pod, and you're going to get 15% off your entire order. That does not include anything that you put into a reoccurring monthly subscription, but anything that you want to purchase for one-time purchase, you can use that promo code TBTalkPod and get 15% off your order at fnxfit.com. You guys saw the commercial there from our good friend Al Snow with Collar and Elbow brand. Collar and Elbow brand founded by Al Snow and has been absolutely amazing. I, as always, am wearing my Collar and Elbow branded hat. I absolutely love this thing. We are proud to be the first sponsored podcast from Collar and Elbow brand. Go and check them out, collarandelbowbrand.com. Anything that you purchase over there, use the promo code JKPodcast and get 10% off that entire order, whether it is brand new or clearance merchandise. JK Podcast over at collarandelbowbrand.com. So before we move on to our other segments of this week, we've talked about our loves growing up and what kept us into professional wrestling. I want to end out this little segment here with one more thing for everybody to go through. We are still fans of professional wrestling. Who is it now that you are watching that has kept you in professional wrestling? Ed, I'm going to let you go first on this one. Who is it that you watch right now that you are a fan of and that you hope you continue to watch and has kept you as a professional wrestling fan?
So I got the opportunity working, and this is an ironic story. I got the opportunity to interview John Cena via a NASCAR pre-race show because he was doing Fast Cars and Superstars with NASCAR at the time. And somehow we got the lucky ball, and instead of drawing people like Mandy Moore and other people who were on that show, we got drawn John Cena.
Nice.
Because it was Boston based and everything else. And so the guy who ran the show goes, Ed, I need a rundown of John Cena. Tell me what you know. And I'm like, how long do you want the email? Like, do you want a quick one or do you want everything I know? And he's like, because he said a quick email of everything. And he's like, here. So he talked to the people and they're like, look, he's got 10 minutes. He doesn't want to talk a whole lot of wrestling, but he's giving you guys one wrestling question on top of talking about the show because he's John Cena and obviously every interview he does goes to wrestling. So they go, this is the deal. We'll do all the NASCAR stuff, but we're going to bring you in the booth for your first time on the air and you get to ask one question about wrestling. And so it was shortly after his brother had had a car crash. His brother's a state trooper was a state trooper in the Boston area and got hit by a drunk driver during a stop. He would stop somebody else and a drunk driver had crashed into the other car that he was trying to deal with and he'd been injured. So I wasted in the terms of my producers, I wasted the one question on asking how his brother was after the tribute show because he had come down to Boston to do a show with his dad who runs a wrestling promotion in the area. And as if anybody who's seen John Cena Sr. on television, he's as much the same guy on television, if not more, when he's on his own and doing his own stuff.
Nice.
He's fantastic. But John loved the question so much that I, took the opportunity to ask about his brother. He gave me one more. So I asked him about wrestling guys like Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels on the greatest stage. Like, what's the feeling going into a match where you're wrestling, guys who are idolized in different versions of wrestling as the best that the country has to offer? Because Shawn Michaels, at the time, me growing up, and even for a guy like, John Cena, growing up in this area, WWE would have been king. So John Cena's kept me interested in wrestling for the last 10, 15 years because he's always kind of here. Nice. But right now, if I had to pick two guys right now, I'm going to stick with my NXT roots. I'm going to go with Santos Escobar, and I'm going to go with Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes is new to a lot of NXT people and a lot of viewers around the world. But to me and guys like JPJ and Throwback, we've known him for years because he's Christian Casanova, and he's been absolutely lighting up the scene down here in the New England area and other areas. So nice. For me right now, two guys that are keeping me interested, Santos Escobar, Carmelo Hayes.
Awesome. Chris, let's throw this over to you. Give me one or two names that you are watching right now that are keeping you in the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I think like as a general wrestling fan now, like kind of wrestling, but like always wrestling fan, I think that's very important to distinguish that, yes, regardless of the fact that I perform, I'm always going to be a fan, always will be. It's really storytelling. It's really, those little things that you just want to see. It's whether or not the product is good enough to keep your, your give a what factor. I'm choosing not to swear because I'm trying to keep this length of streak going. I'm not swearing, even though wrestling, it gets you. But it's also one of those things like you can't help but love the individuality of certain characters. I mentioned four guys that just over the time of my love, like Sting, Jericho, CM Punk, Adam Cole, all in AEW now, and they're generational guys that I've liked in different times. So for that reason, those are the guys of why I'm watching AEW, as well as the Andrade El Idolos, as well as the FTRs. I'm a huge tag team fan, and like that's something that we don't even talk too much about because it's kind of hard to nowadays. But why I'm still watching WWE, that's easy, because I've loved it since I was a kid, and they still have talent that I love. I still love watching the NXTs for the Cameron Grimes. It's hard not to get invested in his backstory and want to see guys like that succeed. I have a heart just like everyone else, so I get tied into that emotional thing. But when it comes to overall performance, I want to see how guys like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins evolve. And then I want to see the diamond in the roughs like come in. I like seeing Bobby Lashley. I like the fact that they're struggling to find the new guys, because you're gonna see guys come through, like whether it's a Big E, whether it's an Xavier Woods, who is, I think, one of the new guys. It's still very exciting. It's all about perspective in pro wrestling. If I was to give you one name of why I still watch wrestling, it's simple. In my personal opinion, one of the best complete performers in this day, his name's Adam Cole, baby. And that's it. Yes, and I know he's not the biggest guy. He's not the most believable guy. But guess what? He makes everything count, and I respect that. And that's really what of a performer I am. I try to make every little thing count. Not to mention, hey, who doesn't want to see him go up against Cena, The Rock, CM Punk on the microphone? Tell me I'm wrong there.
Right? No, you definitely are not wrong. And at that same token, neither was Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels wasn't the biggest. He wasn't the best at absolutely everything. We found out that, yes, he damn well was the best at absolutely everything. But back then we didn't. He wasn't that typical Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior build of a guy that everyone was kind of used to. And he made it to be one of the absolute best. Getting to a couple of comments here. GCW as a whole makes me happy right now, but honestly, I'm excited by these new teens on the wrestling indies. Billy Starks, Starboy Charlie, and Robert Martyr. So yeah, there you go. Anyone that's watching, listening, whether it's live or whether it is afterwards, take a look and Google those names and you'll see exactly what's being talked about there. This one here, yeah. Wow. Wow. Wow.
Well, if it's any inspiration, it's definitely a Blackheart.
Well, there we go.
Woo!
There we go. So there we go. Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. Another two names that yeah, definitely. So that Canada dude. I kind of agree with that. There are names that are in AEW right now that are keeping me watching. Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, looking at guys like Jon Moxley, being able to be Jon Moxley and not Dean Ambrose, I'm 100% behind, and I love watching him work. And then you've got newer names that people really aren't too familiar with, like Serpentico. We saw in the commercial break there about Ignite Wrestling down in Florida. Serpentico is a guy that I absolutely love to watch, and he is a reason why I continue to go and watch Dark and Dark Elevation so that I can see Serpentico working. And Serpentico was part of Ignite Wrestling, which I kind of have a little bit of roots with because, well, yeah, I've known Miss Kim for a little bit of time now, and I just everything that happens right there. And then NXT, like you guys said, when it comes to, the WWE product itself, on the main roster, on the main shows, you do kind of see those familiar faces that, yeah, keep you around, every little bit. But yeah, Cameron Grimes, 100%. I absolutely hate that stupid hat that he wears, but I will tune in just to see Cameron Grimes.
My thing is, though, if you go to a show and he gives it to you, that's going to become your favorite hat ever. I guarantee it.
Right? You're right. It would. 100% it would.
And I know, I'm a big proponent of NXT UK, and I really kind of slapped myself in the face by not mentioning this. I watch it for Jordan Devlin. That guy is just absolutely fire right now, and I cannot wait for the day he's crowned NXT UK champion. It's going to come. This guy's amazing. I'd love to see him and Balor kind of really tear it up.
Yeah. My dream NXT UK continues.
My dream match is still seeing that mentor-student tag match between Mustache Mountain and Balor and Jordan Devlin. It's still just give me that please once. I don't even care if it's a live event. I just want to see it. The story is too good. Just like seeing right now current day Usos against the Mysterios. Man, it's a brother tag team against a father and son. And come on. Like, I don't care if it's under SmackDown or under WWE brand. We all have our perceived perception of what that product is now. But tell me that's not absolutely cool, seeing a guy and his son tag. That's absolutely phenomenally cool, man.
Right? It
Right.
definitely
As much as I want, it's great. Even as much as I want to see Dominic get his head punched in every time he's on my television screen.
Yeah.
He's got a punchable face. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing he's done wrong. He's just got such a punchable face. All I want to see is see him get punched.
Is it weird to say that most kids don't have that?
Yes, but
we're old guys now. Like, let's just say it.
Like, I remember rooting for this kid in 2005 with the Eddie and the Ray storyline with the ladder match. And now all I want to see is see him get punched in the face.
I mean, I just flexed my nephew the other day because I had more Instagram followers than him. So, like, yeah, I get it. Like, we want to always compete against those little brats. I get it.
Speaking of punching people in the face, we're going to move on to our next segment here, and we're going to go to our match of the week. So this is a time where we just kind of talk about and give our not prediction, but the match that we enjoyed the most watching this week. And it doesn't have to be something that actually happened this week. It's just something that you watched this past week that you absolutely loved and want to tell people about. Let's start down below. Ed, do you have anything that you have as your match of the week for this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go back, and it's like I said, it's a little bit of a ways ago, but I was catching up on some NXT stuff, and I watched Santos Escobar versus Carmelo Hayes, and those two guys are absolutely fantastic. And if this leads to a triple threat, which we include Swerve in, like, that match is going to be on fire.
Right.
So anything involving Hit Row and anything involving Legado del Fantasma, you know, we have a thing where we talk about it on NXT, and when it was the War Report. It's the authentic. Those two gimmicks feel authentic. The people who are in charge of keeping them to their roots. It's not. Everybody has an idea of what WWE's ethnic storylines always end up with. But these feel so rooted in the authentic roots of the talent that are involved. You know, we're not seeing a Crime Time version when we see Hit Row. Hit Row's out there doing what Crime Time really could have been, especially watching JTG now. Like, watching that guy now, and as jacked as he is, like, the path for them was amazing. But, you know, anything with Hit Row and anything with Legado del Fantasma, it's just off the charts right now.
Perfect. So we're going to put this up here first before you go, Chris. So that Canada dude says that Chris Parrish is Dean Richter at
as a joke, I was
awesome.
going to say that just to, like, be like, yeah, I'm good. I'd be ego. But at the same time, like, man, it's so hard to you're watching, man. I mean, who's with me on that? Watching TV matches, you're kind of prone to think one thing instead of enjoying it like you do with pay-per-views. Am I wrong to think that? And you're just more pleasantly surprised when something really cool happens on TV for a wrestling match?
Yeah.
Okay. And because of that, I've always been so much more like, I went back and I watched, I'm trying to remember what year No Mercy was, but it was a tag match between Paul London and Brian Kendrick against Casey Idol and Aaron Stevens.
Okay.
I think I got that one right. It was cool because that is just like, I've been trying to get more into tag matches, and that match to me was just absolutely amazing. I watched that DVD this morning actually because, well, yeah, I'm on vacation, so I'm gonna watch a lot of wrestling, and I'm gonna probably drink earlier than normal. So sue me. But yeah, I mean, that No Mercy one was amazing. We saw William Regal against the man that created Toothless Aggression. We also saw an amazing four-way between Bobby Lashley, Fit Finlay, Booker T, and Batista. If people can get me on the year, that pay-per-view was absolutely fantastic. But that tag match, London and Kendrick were so good, man. So good.
Yeah. 100%
I mean,
they were.
A modern-day Hardys, I'd say for sure.
Definitely, I would agree. My match of the week is coming from AEW Rampage this week, and I was very happy with Now, AEW is calling it a trios match. They're not calling it a three-way or six-man or six-woman or anything. They're calling it trios matches. We had AEW Women's World Champion Britt Baker with Jamie Hayter and Rebel taking on Chris Statlander, Riho, and Ruby Soho. Match itself was just really great to see and just amazing to continue to build everything surrounding Ruby Soho right now. Just a great matchup. I was pleasantly surprised with it. I didn't think that it was going to be as good as it was, just considering it's six people in there, and sometimes that can become a huge cluster. And I had hesitations about it, but thankfully I was very pleasantly surprised with it. And yeah, there we go. That is my match of the week. Moving on to our next segment here, something that I know that there's a little bit of this week. So we are going to be bringing you some breaking news. Now, Ed, I know that you talked about before coming on that there is a little bit of breaking news. So I'm going to let you take this to begin with and give me what you've got for some breaking news.
So WWE announced, and say what you want about WWE and Raw and things like that. Damian Priest cut a really great promo where he had an open challenge for his U.S. title, and it's been accepted by Jeff Hardy. I'm excited for this. That's going to be a really cool TV match. Hopefully there's not too much 24/7 shenanigans involved, considering Jeff Hardy was put into the 24/7 picture last week.
Yep.
But it continues putting Damian Priest in there with guys who can just go and guys who can make him look great. And anything that makes him elevated and puts him on television and lets us get to see him is great. I mean, and then we have all the news from last night that broke about NXT as well, but I'm sure somebody else will mention that.
Well, Chris, do you want to mention anything about NXT or Ed, just take it away?
I mean, we all know that unfortunately Samoa Joe has had to step away again for an injury. So Samoa Joe has relinquished the NXT title, and William Regal announced this afternoon, shortly before we went on the air, that the Fatal 4-Way match that was scheduled to be a number one contenders match will now be the new crowning of a new world champion in NXT.
And that's happening this Wednesday, is that correct?
Tomorrow night, Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. Okay. Chris, you have anything for any breaking news?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much breaking news it is, but it was dropped today that Big E is saying he plans to cash in the Money of the Bank at Monday Night Raw tonight. So if there's anything to get excited for Monday Night Raw, I think the fact that not only are we going to see all three members in the New Day back together on televised regular show today, which is always entertaining, but the fact that Big E has a rhyme and a reason to why he's going there, and I think that's really cool. And if by chance we get to end today saying Big E is your new WWE World Heavyweight Champion, had to do that because I'm sitting down, so I can't thrust the hips that way. Yeah. Plus, sorry guys, I'm white. My feet, guilty. Got no rhythm. It's my George Michael. But I mean, come on, how cool would that be to actually be able to wake up on a Tuesday saying Big E is the WWE champion? I mean, and we can talk about how cool it was at WrestleMania when we had Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, two women of color, main eventing a night of WWE. But how cool would it be if your main event picture on a Monday Night Raw for the WWE Championship also now has two performers of color? I mean, just a test of time to how much this wrestling has evolved, and just how much it's just amazing to see stuff like that. So if we're going to talk about something positive, I mean, Big E possibly being WWE champion, come on. Who does not want to see that? We've been this bandwagon for a while now.
Right.
It almost got me to go down to the ticket office at the Garden and purchase a ticket for tonight, because I was like, I'm not sitting through 3 hours of Raw live. But that's not even so much that it's Raw. I don't do television shows live anymore. If it's a pay-per-view or a house show, I'm good. But televised wrestling live is so difficult to watch especially with WWE, where it's the commercial breaks or the commercial breaks. With Ring of Honor, a television taping is fantastic. You're in and out. You get 3 weeks of TV, and you're in and out in 2.5 hours. But I mean, I can't. I mean, that's exciting enough that I almost went and bought a ticket tonight.
I mean,
to go see if Big E could do
to
it.
say you're there for when this happened. I mean, to me, that's so hard to not go on my, especially given the times we are. When you have an opportunity, come on, you got to take it. That's what this life is about now, isn't it?
I'd have to leave
definitely
now.
is.
I'd have to leave now.
Unbeknownst to me, I was actually able to be part of a history-making moment with the WWE back in 2004. I was there at SummerSlam for Randy Orton's first win and becoming the youngest world heavyweight champion. So that was something pretty cool. You know what else is really cool? The 2300 Arena. So if anyone is in the area of the old ECW stomping grounds, the 2300 Arena, in October 2nd in Philadelphia, there's going to be somebody that is making their way over to MLW, and we are talking Mr. Bobby Fish. It has been confirmed that he is going to be part of the upcoming Opera Cup tournament and making his debut at the Fightland show on October 2nd in Philadelphia. He says, I'm ready to jump in headfirst into MLW, especially with the Opera Cup. I welcome this new challenge. I'm in a situation now where I have extra room for creativity with what you see in the ring. That's what I'm here to push. MLW has some very talented athletes, and I'm excited to see how we mix it up. So if you are a fan of Bobby Fish and want to see him in action and are near Philadelphia and the 2300 Arena, that might be what you need to do and where you need to go. Yeah. So thank you very much, guys, for that. That was absolutely amazing. I'm glad that we actually had some good breaking news to give with everyone, because over the last couple of weeks, there really hasn't been very much that we haven't talked about on the main part of the show. And it has been absolutely great to actually have some news to bring back again. We're going to give everybody a little bit more news, maybe not so much news, but some tips and some tricks coming up here as we go into our Showstopper segment. So our Showstopper segment this week is going to be talking about ways and the avenues to go for those who are aspiring to become a professional wrestler. Anyone who's looking to get into the business, and it doesn't necessarily have to be if you're looking to get in as a worker, as a wrestler. It could be if you're looking to get in as commentary, if you're looking to get in as backstage reporter, announcer, it doesn't matter. There are many different ways and avenues that you can go about it. Chris, I know that you are itching to talk about this, so I'll let you start out a little bit here and give us some of the best ways and best practices for that.
Well, the first thing is, it's all about, you got to make sure you have the right attitude. You got to make sure that you're willing to always wake up every single day, despite how you feel, to always be ready to learn. And it doesn't matter if you're on day 1 or you're in year 10. If you don't have that mentality, you will not last in professional wrestling. So you have to be humble and grateful for every chance you have. And be able to be a sponge to information, because I've always had this theory on wrestling. Whereas as a performer, I always want to have a perfect match. But here's the catch. How I was as a pro wrestler in 2004 is completely different from how I am a pro wrestler in 2001. So what I viewed from a perfect match in 2004, I could be absolutely just looking back at that and nitpicking every little thing now, because my thought process to wrestling has changed. Just like it will probably tomorrow, next year, whatever. So by that theory, it's no longer a perfect match. But if every day I'm inspiring to get better and learn from the match that I just had, or a performance I had, or anything like that, I'm getting better as a performer. So you got to have that mentality, because if you don't, you're only going to be as good as what you think you are. And usually what you think you are is not as good, not to mention there are a lot of people in that locker room that have zero time for you, because everyone helps each other. Make sure you go to a good school. Make sure that they have recommendations. Make sure that they're teaching you the hard way, not the easy way, because you appreciate the hard way. Look at everyone in these major companies that you're watching on a 24 special on the network. They're telling you all the struggles they had. They all don't come from the same background. They always talk about the struggles that they had, and they had to overachieve to get there. Why? Because this is not an easy business.
No.
Is it for everyone? No. But can it be? Depends on who you are. You have to overcome and you have to evolve. And if you're not willing to do that, you are simply wasting people's time, and you're going to hurt yourself doing that in the process. So make sure that you take it seriously. Share as hard as it is financially, if you have to travel and move to get to a better learning curve, if it's what you're seriously considering, do it. The sacrifice is worth it. And understand that you're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to give away everything that you thought you'd want in a personal life. Become a professional wrestler.
Yeah. Ed, for yourself, is there anything that you can speak to anyone who's looking to get into, whether it's, as a professional wrestler or as a commentator or in broadcasting or anything like that? Do you have any advice?
Never stop, never give up. You're going to hear the word no an awful lot. It's become so easy to start a podcast and start doing your own thing. Make sure you're reaching out. Make sure you're connecting with the right people. Align yourself with people who aren't going to hurt you or stab you in the back if you get bigger than they are. Like Parrish was saying, even with working with wrestling schools, I'm lucky enough to grow up in an area where we had the chaotic wrestling school, where the word chaotic, some people go, I think I've heard of that. Well, you've heard of our graduates, guys like Kofi Kingston, guys like Tommaso Ciampa, Hanson of the War Raiders. Those are just a few of the guys in this wrestling business who have come through that school. Triple H, came through the Kowalski school that was right next door to the Chaotic Wrestling Academy back in the day. And they've taken over a lot of those practices. If you're looking for a place and you just want name recognition of guys that know what they're doing and are great hands, Flatbacks. I mean, those two guys, they don't need to do this wrestling thing anymore. Sean Spears and Tyler Breeze have figured out what to do to make themselves marketable and everything else.
Yeah.
But they're such great workers that I can't imagine that Flatbacks isn't a good school. I can't imagine 3D Academy isn't a good school. Look for the guys in your area who are former good hands. You don't have to look for the star because the star might not know how to teach. But if you find the good hands, those are the guys that are going to teach you what you need to get into this business the right way.
There you go. I fully agree with all of that. You need to find that school and you need to have the dedication. First and foremost, though, you need to make sure that you get your education. Do not think that you are going to go to a professional wrestling school and make it to be the next Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, or anything like that, because the chances of that, unfortunately, are pretty slim to none. So before you even think about getting into a professional wrestling school, look at finding something in actual school. Get yourself a diploma, graduate high school, take something in college, and have something that you can fall back onto. Because the professional wrestling world is not for everyone, and it's something that not everybody is going to find major success in. I can tell you from personal experience that I didn't go to college, and I went right to professional wrestling, and it screwed me because I did not make a lot of money in the professional wrestling world, and I had to take these menial jobs and just to pay the bills, and I didn't get myself an education. So make sure you do that first and foremost, and then find a reputable company to go and train with for professional wrestling. That's going to be your biggest thing. Somebody who is reputable. You don't want just Joe Schmo that's doing something out of his backyard and you've never heard of this guy. And when you Google him, there's absolutely nothing there for this person. You might want to stay clear of that just a little bit. If you go to the shows and you're able to stick around afterwards, talk to some of these independent workers that are out there and ask them, say, hey, you look like you're doing pretty decent working inside of this company. Where did you train? Most of the time, the workers are going to be like, hey, you know what? This is who I went to. This is what I had to do. Go check out this school, that school, whatever, something like that. I mean, they're going to help you out. Why? Because they have that same love for professional wrestling, right? That's the biggest thing. Have that passion, but make sure that first you're getting your actual education and then find a reputable company to go and train with. That's your first steps and your first startings. So I am super blown out here in whiteness because the sun is setting. And yeah, it's really made me look, and I've tried turning off my ring lights and I turned it back on and nothing seems to be helping with this. And even see, there we go. There we go. Yeah. So while this continues to blow me out, I'm going to give both of you an opportunity, starting with you, Chris, to let us know where people can find you and what you do here with Love Wrestling.
Well, you can find me on all the socials, whether it's Twitter at Chris Parrish, whether it's on the Instagram at Chris.Parrish, whether it's on Twitch at the Chris Parrish. You can also find me on Inspired this week with Cameron Stevens, as I will be his guest this coming week. I will also be on Saturday Reacts this Saturday. Actually, I will not be. I will be wrestling in Lethbridge, Alberta at Pure Power Wrestling. Sorry. Probably won't be there. Maybe. We'll see. But tune in either way. It's a great show. I will be here for Sunday night, Sunday brunch on Sunday. And then I am also one half of the hosts of the POS show, which will be coming to you. I believe it's September 26th for Extreme Rules. That is the next time we'll be displaying. Date might be wrong, but the event is correct. I know that much for sure. Just like my teenage years, I thought homework was a stupid idea, so I don't do it. But look at me now. But yeah, no, that's where you can find me. Make sure you go to lovewrestling.ca for all your needs for love wrestling information. So many great shows, so many good stuff. Go to the shop, buy our stuff, because we like to pay bills too.
That's right. Ed, what about you? Where can people find you this coming week over on Love Wrestling?
So people can find me on Twitter at edfries12584. You can find me. I'll be hosting along with Ashton Pizarro and Cody. I'll be hosting the debuting NXT tomorrow night after Power Out with our double feature. So stop in to watch Power Out as soon as NXT is over, and then we'll be following right afterwards as we'll be talking all the happenings of the Index wedding, of the rebrand of NXT, of the crowning of a new world champion. There's a whole lot going on tomorrow night.
There definitely is.
That being said, you can also catch me on the Saturday Reacts, and you can also catch me moderating in Tom Collihue's Twitch channel for his spoiler warning shows.
Awesome. You guys can find us at TB Talk Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we are over on lovewrestling.ca. So make sure that you are checking out lovewrestling.ca. As you heard, there is so much stuff that is happening over there, and it's all good quality stuff that's happening there. Make sure you go and check that out. As I talked about before, our sponsors, Phoenix, FNXFit.com. Use that promo code TB Talk Pod, and you're going to get 15% off your order. And our friends over at collarandelbowbrand.com, use that promo code JK Podcast for your 10% off. And we have to say thank you so much to StreamYard, because without StreamYard platform, we would not be bringing you all of this great content in video format. And we have to say thank you to our friends over at the HTM Podcast Network, as well as IndiePW.com for continuing to be amazing and hosting this show every week and putting it out there for their fan base and their listeners, who most of them have come over to become fans of us as well. And we are so happy with that. Thank you so much to everybody. I'm not sure what is going to be happening this week with Turnbuckle Rewind, so I'm not going to give you any information on that as of yet, but what I can tell you is that if a Turnbuckle Rewind episode comes out this week, it will be available at lovewrestling.ca. So make sure that you are watching lovewrestling.ca on Wednesday to see if there is an episode of Turnbuckle Rewind that comes out. I'm going to do my best to make sure that we get that done for everybody because we absolutely love consistency and we want to stay consistent with it. Chris, what do you got before we go?
Karl, if you need some help, I'm off this week. I'm just saying, I'm here for you, buddy. But also, I just before you go, I just want everyone to know that we do want everyone to make sure that if you have a chance to send Mighty Joe your wishes. He is going through a little bit of a struggle with a flood in his house. It is not fun. So he is going through some crappy times right now. So make sure you show some love to Mighty Joe because he is absolutely killing it on so many fields. So we can't forget about Mighty Joe.
Absolutely.
With that being said, thank you so much to Chris and thank you so much, Ed, for joining me today and helping out and making sure that we're still able to bring Turnbuckle Talk to the masses and especially for us being here on lovewrestling.ca. With that, thank you so much. And we are going to say bye.